Hello, everyone, and welcome to this podcast by the Young Advisors. I'm Jack, and I will be hosting the podcast today. I will be joined by my fellow Young Advisors, Tim
Greetings once more.
and Abby.
Hi.
The theme of this podcast today will be a group discussion on experiences of using Instagram and how it may influence our mental health. This is likely to be the first of an exclusive social media podcast series, as billions of young people use social networking sites on a daily basis. Look out for additional social media podcast content in the future. So, first of all, we're going to be talking about how Instagram can be a positive influence. So, we're going to try and talk about positive experiences we may have and our beliefs as to whether we think it's beneficial or not to daily life and our mental health. So, starting with you, Tim, is there
Yes.
any specific positive experiences that you have had associated with Instagram?
Yeah, it's another platform to connect with other people on, which is great. And also as an amateur photographer outside of work, it's also a place to display my work, and also connect with other like-minded people, and also to get inspiration as well from other like-minded photographers. To see what I can uh, what I can go out and shoot next, and things like that. And it's also, and this is a very specific thing, but I do like how the platform does, at least in the archives, does remind you of like 1 year ago today, where you were. Like the other day, I was reminded 1 year ago I was in Edinburgh. I took a weekend away to Edinburgh, and I love the city. It's a great place, and seeing something as simple as that, being reminded, like, hey, you were in Edinburgh and you took these great photos there, and that was really good. So I think as a platform, and using it, I certainly really like Instagram. Although I'm not absolutely obsessed with it. I do discipline myself. I'm not addicted to it. But no, I think generally, at least for me, it's quite a good thing.
Oh, that's interesting. So, I remember how you talked about for you it was a good way to kind of like display your own photography work and to
Yes.
network with other professionals in photography.
Yeah.
So, is there any specific way do you reckon that helped you to network with these other people that are passionate about photography for Instagram? Like, is there any kind of like way you do it for Instagram or?
Well, obviously hashtags do help, but also when someone reposts your work, for example, I have a very unusual Instagram profile. Let's just say, because I do a lot of railway photography, as I've been passionate about railways since I was 4, and I every now and again I get reposted by a group called UK Rail Scene, and so my work gets posted to a much bigger audience, which is quite rewarding, because when I go out on a railway shoot, sometimes I travel quite far, or at least I did travel quite far. So it is, and I plan everything, and what gear I'm going to take, and what lenses I'm going to use. I put a lot of thought into it, and it is nice to be rewarded when someone recognizes your work, and the effort you've put into it behind that. So yeah.
So you definitely find it as a rewarding way
Yeah.
to display your work. It gives you recognition.
Absolutely, and it's also a global community as well. You could talk to people, and interact with people from all across the world, and also see what their point of view is through photos, really.
So I've noticed that you've definitely touched on how it's kind of like beneficial to you for your daily life, but
Yeah.
would you also say that it's improved your mental health in any way?
Um, I wouldn't say it's improved it. Um, I say, as I touched on earlier, it's given me little pick me ups, like I say, the aforementioned like memories feature, which I know not everyone might like, and I think you can turn it off. But I personally find that quite beneficial because we all have busy lives these days, including me, and sometimes you forget. Oh, I posted this amazing shot of whatever it is, and then to be reminded, oh yes, you took this on this day. It's a little pick me up, even if you're having a bad day. Like, oh, I can, I'm still great. I can do great things, So it's not been overly beneficial to my mental health, but it serves as a little pick me up, basically, a little pick me up in my pocket on my phone. So anywhere at almost any time. So that's about it, really.
Okay, so it kind of like gives you little uplifts in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
It picks you up, as you said. But yeah, thank you very much, Tim. We'll move on to Abby now. So Abby, is there any kind of like positive experiences that you've had with Instagram?
Yeah. I am particularly fond of Instagram. It was one of the first kind of social media networks that I actually had, being a very young adult. So at that point, it was a really great way to connect with people at school, just catch up on each other's lives. And, like, I love posting about what I'm doing. I like taking good photos, like the same as Tim, and posting them and seeing what other people are doing. I think it's great. Particularly for me, though, I actually met one of my best friends through Instagram. We both lived in Stafford, and I messaged her on Insta DM, and we ended up meeting up and going for a meal, and we're still really good friends now. And like, that's really, really, like, it helped me because she is very similar. Obviously I could see her profile and what she was posting, and seeing that we were, we could be friends. And I made that shot by messaging her, and now we're really, really good friends, and I do really like that. I also like to use my platform for who I follow. I like to have that very catered to what I like. So at the moment, I'm very into looking into spirituality. So I follow accounts that are to do with that. I also do love the mental health recovery accounts. I find them so inspirational. And even accounts that are just posting their artwork and quotes to do with mental health, absolutely love it. And I think that inspires me on a day-to-day basis, because even when I'm opening my phone and scrolling through social media, especially Instagram, my feed isn't just influencers, celebrities, people that can almost make you feel bad about yourself. I like to follow the people that inspire me, and I can almost like look up to. And I can see their posts and everything that they're doing with their life, and say, hey, like, I remember when I was at that really low point, and this person has been there, and I relate to that. And it's just nice. Like, I do really like it, and I've had some really positive experience with it.
Right, so there's a couple of things that I kind of picked up from what you were saying there. Like the first one was, I noticed that you said that it was a good way to kind of like keep tabs on what your friends are doing and like keep in touch with your friends, like see what they were up to as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, like knowing what other people are doing and posting lots about their life. But I think for me, being as social as I am, especially in lockdown when you can't really see what people are doing, you're not really seeing people. I think it's really nice to, see that people are doing well for themselves, especially, I see people that I went to high school with posting on social media. And, I think it's great that, they've gone down a certain career path, or they've chosen to do something, or they've been abroad. And I think it's nice to see that people are doing well.
So you just mentioned lockdown. Would you say that it's been more beneficial because of lockdown, like keeping in touch with them through Instagram?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's nice to see what people are doing on a day-to-day basis. And even just, scrolling through the explore page and finding new accounts to follow, new posts to be inspired by. I think it's really good. And I think especially over lockdown, I've come to utilize Instagram a lot better than I think I did in the past, which has been really helpful.
Yeah, that's interesting. So lockdown, it could possibly be like a facilitator for kind of like engaging on Instagram in a more social kind of way. But the other point I was going to kind of like pick up on that you mentioned was, you mentioned that Instagram is kind of very customizable to kind of like what you're interested in. Like you mentioned that you follow a lot of spirituality pages and mental health pages on there.
Yeah, definitely. I think social media is what you want it to be. And especially for me, I'm quite subconsciously very sensitive to what I absorb on social media. And I don't want anything that's going to negatively impact me. So I have to have my social media catered to me. And I think it's great. Everyone should do it, because I think, yeah, it's great to see what celebrities and influencers are doing if you're into that kind of thing. But if it doesn't benefit you and it doesn't inspire you to be a better person, or it doesn't make you feel, it doesn't increase your self-worth, I think it's pointless. So to me, I like to have it very catered who I'm following. And, if trends go in and out, and, say in 6 months I'm not that interested in spirituality anymore, then I will unfollow those accounts and maybe look into something new. But yeah, I like it like that.
Yeah, so it's very much contemporary. It's kind of like what you're interested in the here and now. Um, but just kind of like going on to the second part of topic one there. So I remember you saying that you felt inspired by it. Would you say that it kind of like helps your mental health in this way, or is there any other kind of like ways in which it benefits your own mental health personally?
Yeah. Like Tim said, it's not like a massive factor. I tend to focus more on external physical factors that impact my mental health significantly. But I think it's on a very basic level, the day-to-day things that we don't even realize impact our mental health. And Instagram is one of those things for me. Like, if I completely changed my feed and who I follow and the way I interacted with people on that, I do think my mental health would be impacted. Um, so how I have it now is, is beneficial for me. I see things daily that are inspirational, whether that be an amazing photographer or a really inspirational individual who's battled through their mental health problems, and they're sharing about their experiences and how to get through really tough times, especially during lockdown as well. I think it's good that, you can see people on a very human level and know that you're not alone. And also seeing people's accounts and they're posting stuff that you can relate with. I think that's also really important and definitely beneficial to mental health.
So yeah, it can be beneficial then, based on what you've just said. But I'll just briefly touch on kind of like my take on this, like my positive experiences before we move on to the next section. So yeah, there's some things that both of you have said there, both Tim and Abby, that I can relate to you personally. Like with Tim talking about photography, and it being a good place to kind of like post what you're interested in and what your passion is. For me, yes, it was a good way to kind of like post about my kind of like photography as well. Like I haven't done it to a professional level, but it's a good place, in my opinion, to kind of post what you're passionate about. And personally, I find that quite invigorating, quite inspiring, as Abby put. But also, yeah, it's also a good place to kind of like keep in contact with your friends and to kind of like gain an idea of what your friends are up to, especially now since we're currently in lockdown right now in the middle of November. So it's a good place to keep in touch, kind of like with your friends if you can't go out and see them. But I've had a very specific positive experience of Instagram, in terms of friends as well. Like, I remember Abby talking about messaging one of her best friends now on Instagram. That's how you first met them. Well, the same's happened to me with quite a few of my friends, and even my girlfriend, actually. Like, that was how I met my girlfriend, because I remember I didn't used to be a very sociable, very extroverted person, and Instagram was kind of like like a good starter, like a good stepping stone for me to come out more socially. I remember I just messaged people kind of like out of the blue that had mutual friends of me, because at the time I didn't have any friends that were kind of like local to me. And my current girlfriend now, I remember messaging her about 3 years ago, just out of the blue. I didn't know her, but she kind of had mutual friends, but I didn't know her at all. And I just dropped her a message, and obviously, like, she was quite nice back to me, and we became friends, and then best friends for 2 years, and then she became my girlfriend. So a very positive experience kind of like came out of just randomly messaging someone on Instagram, looking for friendship. So it actually turned out very well. But yeah, on a greater kind of like scale, I think that it is, as Abby put again, like very customizable. Kind of like it depends what you expose yourself to. I follow kind of like quite a lot of interesting photography pages as well that keep me hooked, keep me interested, inspire me. A lot of mental health pages. So, but again, I think the content really does vary depending on what pages you follow. And I do think Instagram can have some negative implications as well. And we're going to touch on those in just a moment. So, on that topic, Tim, are there, would you say there's any unpleasant experiences you've had with Instagram, or that you're aware of at the very least?
I haven't had any like really negative experiences of Insta per se, but just on a general note, one thing I dislike, and I'm not sure if everyone thinks this, is sort of drama that kicks off on Instagram. There are a few accounts I follow, and someone will put really a nice photo, and then the description is just moaning about such and such, which is just irritating. Like, I get it, you're frustrated, but at the same time, is Insta really the place to vent? I don't know. And also, especially if they're venting about the wrong thing or whatever it is. But no, I've not had any negative experiences per se. But there are other issues like such as body image and narcissism. Like, a few influencers can very unfortunately very easily almost manipulate people, saying this is how you should live, and this is what you should do, and this is what you should look like, simply through the content they post, which I think is it is morally wrong. In that sense, I think Instagram is almost being abused in that sense, because it's at the end of the day, it's a place to share photos from your point of view of the world through your lens, or lenses in my case, not to influence the minds of other people, because morally that's wrong, I think.
Yes. So you just mentioned Instagram celebrities, so influencers in particular, they can post kind of like a very misleading form of lifestyle.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it being abusive, kind of like abusing Instagram.
I think so. Yeah.
How would you describe it as abusive then? Like, is there any kind of like examples you can think of that would make it like abusive with the misleading the public?
No, I was just simply saying from my point of view, I don't think Insta was created for as a manipulation tool almost. I think the platform can be sometimes abused by people who want to shape other people. Like, the aforementioned influencers. I know not everyone is is awful. I know, but at the end of the day, Insta is just it's a place to connect and talk over photos and stories now, and and Reels, which is the TikTok competitor, and not a place to say everyone should be as good as me, because that's narcissistic, really. So, and also on that, I would also just like to say, really, if when you're posting something, do think twice. Like, don't go into something thinking everyone should live like me and everyone should look like this, because that's wrong, because we're all different at the end of the day. It'd be very boring, actually, if all 7.5 billion of us human beings on the earth were all the same. It would be a pretty boring world, wouldn't it? So
Yeah, definitely. So would you say that these influencers have like a very narrow-minded kind of like
I think so,
narcissistic
yeah.
way of
Yeah.
posting?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and again, not all influencers, and there are some genuinely nice ones. Although I don't follow any influencers, and as Abby said earlier, social media is really what you make of it. You can choose who you follow. Exercising pluralism, choice, and I think it's a great thing in the 21st century, like in media, which Instagram is e-media. We have so much choice, and we can tailor our social media feed to exactly, well, almost exactly how we want it. Obviously, we can't control other people, and we wouldn't want to. But you can tailor your feed to exactly how you want it. So if you don't, I don't follow any influencers. I follow, I obviously follow, friends, including you, Jack, of course.
Of course,
And
yeah.
oh yes, your photography is getting better and better. Trust me.
Thank you.
We've just got to get you a proper camera next.
All right. So, speaking of camera and lenses, I
Yeah.
remember you mentioned body image. So, how do you think that Instagram can be harmful or damaging towards body image?
That is a very good question. I guess by promoting it, or by other users promoting exactly how one's body should look. You know, there's not really a lot I know about it, because I say I tailor my feed. So for me, body image hasn't been a problem. But I guess just generally there is almost an expectation that everyone should be, slim and be this weight and be this tall, which just isn't the case, because us human beings come in all shapes and sizes, and we're all perfectly fine, really. We're all human beings at the end of the day. Again, if we were all the same, it would be a bit of a boring world, both in the real world and also online through platforms like Insta. So
Yeah, so I can agree there. I think that Instagram, it can set sometimes some quite unrealistic body image standards, and like we're promoting the stereotypical skinny body type, especially in females, I must say. But yeah, just moving on. Is there any kind of like, would you say it's been harmful in any way to your mental health, Instagram, like being exposed to Instagram, or would you say that it's mainly just positive?
for me, it's mainly been positive. As I say, you know, I mean, I am quite self-disciplined. If I don't like an application like Insta, I will just remove it from my phone. If I don't like it, it has no business being on my phone. Although I know not everyone has self-taught themselves to be self-disciplined like that. But no, on the whole, it's been generally. I would say Insta's been very inspirational. As I say, as a photographer, I use it be inspired and also to try new photography. I mean, I say I mostly do railway and aviation photography, but I would like at some point to do portraits. I have done some portraits before, but not many. I'm not that experienced. Um, but so in that sense, Insta can be used for at least for me, to learn how to do portraits, and also uh, to see what gear other people are using. Although that's not always important. You do not just as a general note, you don't need the very best lenses and cameras to take great photos. You don't. Sometimes, in fact, quite a lot of the time, your phone will just do. But no, generally, Insta has been. I mean, I've been on Instagram for 2 years now, and yeah, it's been really good. It's a worldwide community, but there's also communities within that community, if that makes sense. Like I say, there's photographers such as myself in that sort of sub community of Insta, if that makes sense. Um, and we have a great time. So yeah, generally, it's been positive. I know not everyone has found it positive, but for me, Instagram is a great place. But like with everything in life, it's certainly not perfect, and it never will be perfect. But that's fine.
Yeah, so I'm glad to hear that for you it's been mostly beneficial and inspiring in your photography, and that it's encouraging you to kind of branch out to portraits as well as railway photography. But we'll move on to Abby now. Abby, would you say there are kind of like any unpleasant experiences of Instagram that you would like to share with us that you've had personally?
Yeah. Obviously, previously I've just said that I do use Instagram a lot, and I do really do like it, but it is a very love-hate relationship. Um, I can touch on a couple points with this. Previously, I have suffered with anorexia, so Instagram for me wasn't always such a positive platform. As Tim and Jack previously touched on, body image, especially for young girls, is such a big issue on Instagram and other social media platforms. We've seen so many people, both boys and girls, that are being portrayed in these kind of large influencer accounts that the posts are reaching hundreds of thousands of people. Yet these posts, they're photoshopped, they're edited, they're taken in such specific angles and lighting that it creates such an unrealistic portrayal of what someone should look like. And I think it, especially in young boys and girls, this is so damaging on mental health. And I know I felt exactly the same way when I was really at a low point, and you go on Instagram and you see all these perfect people, but in real life they're not perfect. But all you're seeing is that one photo, and I think you get into it's easy to allow it to get into your head that this is an ideal body type. Um, so it can really reduce self-esteem, and you know, I think everyone thinks that they should look a certain way, but like Tim said, we're not all the same. And it's taken me a good few years to realize that I don't have to look like people on Instagram. And that's why I have to have my feed very tailored. If I'm seeing all these young women influencers in their bikinis on holiday all day, every day on my feed, that's going to make me feel bad about myself, even though I know that half the time these pictures are edited professionally. So that's not really the kind of thing that I want to see. So, but that has previously been a problem in the past. And another point I wanted to touch on, which I have also experienced when I was quite poorly with my own mental health, is the fact that how you report a picture on Instagram isn't, it's not good. These pictures, you can post anything essentially, and when you report it, it has to go through Instagram and they decide whether it gets taken down or not. So you can go on the hashtags or search, and you can search things like self-harm, you can search anorexia, you can search all these different types of things, you can research suicide, and photos will come up on Instagram. And that is readily available to anyone using the app. So I know now it does come up with a kind of trigger warning, but you can easily dismiss that. And you can scroll through like hundreds and thousands of photos of self-harm, etc. And it's impossible to get all of these photos taken down by individually reporting. And Instagram allows this kind of content to be posted. And I think it's really, really damaging for young people and just anyone really who's going to look at that, especially if they are already struggling with their mental health. Because I know I did that when I was poorly, and I look at other girls on Instagram with eating disorders and I think, oh, I want to look like that. And that material was readily there for me. And it is very, very damaging. And I don't think Instagram does enough to get this kind of material taken down. I don't think there's enough action being done against it. And it's something that, you know, like having experienced it myself and used it, and like Tim said, you can abuse Instagram. This was very damaging for myself, and I can imagine how many other young girls and boys did exactly the same and are still doing the same. So yeah, that's just two of the unpleasant experiences. I could go on, but I'm not going to, because otherwise I'll be rambling on for ages. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much for sharing both of those experiences. Some quite disturbing topics there, actually. With body image, as mentioned before, like with Instagram, it can be damaging, especially if you suffer from an eating disorder such as anorexia, like yourself suffered from. And also the fact that these hashtags aren't like properly censored, and you can easily just kind of like get through the trigger warning. Like, that's disturbing for me as well, that they're on there in the first place, and that Instagram lets its users post hashtags with such content on them. To be honest, like I can definitely agree there with Instagram, like the customer service not being that great at all. In my experience with that, just to touch on it very briefly, just on that point, in my experience, posts that I've reported haven't been taken down at all as well, and I don't think that anything is done on some cases, and they just dismiss cases because they have so much to deal with, because there's obviously so many accounts. They just dismiss so many because they haven't got enough staff or whatever, or enough working hours to properly look into disturbing cases such as that. Like, I have a very different experience with that. Like, I remember in my case, to touch on something that also wasn't dealt with, is a bit different to that. I remember there was at least one account that was made with my photos, and I remember reporting in the account, reporting the photos, getting my friends to do the same, and Instagram did nothing about it, and they'd say that this account does not go against our guidelines, even after I submitted, like, because they had a proper detailed electronic form where we had to send ID to prove it was you. And even then, I remember still nothing was done, and the account wasn't taken down until the person that was obviously trying to catfish me eventually got bored of it and stopped posting. So yeah, I think that the service in Instagram can be quite appalling, not only with the hashtags and that triggering content such as self-harm and body image, but also with the exploitation of photos that you've already posted on your account, if you're unlucky to have that done to yourself. But yeah, I remember you saying that Instagram can be very harmful for your body image because of what everyone else is posting with these misleading angles and lighting. So obviously I imagine that has been harmful to your mental health, but could you perhaps, like, is there any other kind of like ways would you say that Instagram is harmful to your mental health, or would you say that now at least it's mainly positive for you?
I definitely think in the past, when I was very new to Instagram, maybe in the past couple of years, um, we're talking more of the negative impacts, uh, because of my mental health and also because I didn't know how to utilize it properly. Um, so I think, as you've already said, using accounts for photos, I think, it can be a very good way for people to use it for cyberbullying. And this isn't something that I've experienced personally, but my friends have um, experienced such things where accounts have been made using their photos, um, and what that does to a person's mental health is it it can be devastating. And I don't think, like you said, not enough is done on Instagram to, you know, control or, eliminate cyberbullying, especially on its platform. Um, Other than that, I'd say that um kind of attention seeking on Instagram, that I know for me personally and my younger self, it was very hard to not associate how many likes you get on a photo, and you know that doesn't equal your physical self-worth. And that was something I found really hard to get my head around for a long time. I'd delete photos if they didn't get enough likes, or if I posted a picture of myself and it didn't get above a certain number of likes, I'd delete it and think that I looked ugly. And I look back and I think that that wasn't true at all. you know I don't You don't need likes on a photo to for it to be good. you know and I think especially now with the younger generations that are very social media based, a lot more than I think I was at their age. I think it's something that can be really, really damaging because you can go onto Instagram, take a selfie, and think that you look so good and post it. And because you've only got 4 likes, you then feel really bad about yourself. You think, oh, there must be something wrong with me. Like I'm not attractive. So that association between likes and self-worth is definitely a big issue. And I definitely experienced that being a young girl growing up into kind of a growing social media based society. And I don't think it's got any better really. So yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that kind of like checking on how many likes you've got, because I think it's to do with my personality partially, because I'd say that I'm a perfectionist and I kind of like always kind of like want to take the best photos with the best angles and kind of like
Yeah.
make the most of myself on Instagram. And I'd kind of say that even now, like from time to time, I do struggle with kind of like seeking behavior, because I do think like it's a nice feeling when you kind of like see the heart notification when you get some likes on a picture. Like it sends out like a little kind of like a little kind of like a good feeling like
Yeah,
down
definitely.
you, like when you get a certain like on a photo, like at least for me. And yeah, I think that even now I do struggle with that. And if I don't get a certain amount of likes, like you said, I will sometimes delete photos because I feel like they flopped, or I feel like I don't perhaps look as good. But I think it's important to remember that, because I forget this sometimes, but it's important to remember that the amount of likes that you get, it can depend on your reach. Like it can depend on how many people see your photos, like the time of day. It can depend on like all manner of things, like other people are working or not. Like there's so many factors that come into it, and it doesn't mean that you're unattractive, but it can be hard. Like if you're going through a bad mental health day it can be easy to kind of assume that you don't look like very attractive on your photo if you don't have many likes on it. So yeah, it's definitely something that I can relate to.
Sorry, I was just going to mention with regards to, I know people, Abby has mentioned, if you don't, it's quite difficult if it can feel difficult if you don't get a certain number of likes on a certain number of photo. But the flip side to that is that the thing is, photography is like just generally is very subjective. So what you think is really good, someone else might not think is good, and but the flip side to that is that you might think a shot you've taken isn't actually, or a selfie, whatever it is you've taken, and it's not very good, and other people might think, oh, that is really good, and then they go out and they go out and like it, and that's, I would say that is actually better. It actually is a better feeling when you've posted something which you don't think is that good, but everyone else thinks it's great. I actually think that's a better feeling. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, definitely. No, I do agree with you. I do think that what people post it's subjective. Everyone
It
likes
is.
individually.
Again, it all comes down to we're all different, and that's a fantastic thing. So
definitely,
yeah, there's definitely a theme of subjectivity coming around here. So I must agree there. I think that kind of like what people think is good or not, it can depend on kind of like the current trends, like the current styles, like what things are kind of like emerging in fashion and whatnot, or what like looks most quirky and different. I think that subjectivity in photos can depend on so many different factors as to what you personally like, that I'm aware of time slipping by, so we're going to move on now onto this next final kind of like subject area, which is going to be about kind of like the first question here is going to be kind of like as to whether you think that an Instagram profile is kind of like representative of who that person is or what they look like, and if so, if not, do you think that Instagram profiles are different to reality? So firstly, coming on to Tim, do you think that Instagram profiles are actually a representative indication of who or what they look like? And if not, do you think that Instagram profiles are different to that person in reality?
that's a very interesting question, and also quite tough to answer because it really varies from person to person, and it's just difficult to tell because it's say someone's Instagram profile is just on your screen, and that's all you've got to go off, really. I'd say generally, well, it's really difficult actually thinking about it. I guess they can be different to reality. Yes, for some, I say the influencers, but again, not all influencers, I must add. Yeah, Instagram profiles can be different to different to reality. Yes, people want to post, the best, and even I'm, guilty of that with the photography I do. Even the niche I'm in of railway photography, I post, I what my best work, because Insta's almost become my portfolio. Yeah, they Insta profiles can be very different to people in reality, but it really it really varies from person to person, really. Again, it is a really it's a really interesting, but it's also a very tough question. So yeah.
Yeah, so a very interesting answer for a very interesting question there. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that it can vary from person to person.
Mm.
I must agree there as well. I think that it can vary depending on the person and maybe what they're posting. Like for you, you mentioned that your Instagram profile is mainly like a kind of like a portfolio for your railway work.
Yeah.
So I imagine that that's probably quite accurate to some degree as the kind of person that you are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I guess that maybe it doesn't post kind of like everything about what you do. Like it doesn't post like all your hobbies, I imagine. So
No.
maybe it kind of like gives just like a maybe a certain point of view to the kind of person that you are.
Yeah, and also a lot of as I say, a lot of photographers, our you know, when we take a certain photo and when it all comes together, that's fantastic. But most of the time, a lot of the photos we take don't work out. Exposure's wrong, or a setting is wrong, or we don't get the composition right. But most things that us photographers shoot don't work out. So of course we post the very best, but a lot of photographers won't. Photographers on Insta and other platforms as well won't actually tell you that most of the stuff that they shoot doesn't go to plan. But trust me, a lot of this, things don't always work out. But yeah.
All right, yeah, Abby, do you have a certain take on this? Like, do you think that an Instagram profile is actually representative of who that person is and what they look like?
I'm going to follow on from Tim here and say that I really do believe that Instagram, you only see the highlights of people's kind of life. You don't see their mundane day-to-day activities. You only see what they want you to see, essentially. And that's what we all do. And like Tim says, you're only going to see other photographers' very best photos. You're not going to see all the ones that failed. You're not going to see how long it took them to get to that point where they're taking these really good photos. So, and I definitely think, someone who looks at my Instagram profile is going to think, like, I go out with my friends a lot, I like to go out for drinks with my friends, I like to go out with my boyfriend, but they don't see the bad mental health days. They don't see me slumped over my laptop on a Monday morning doing my university work. They don't see that. And, I think that all of these things together make us who we are as a person. The boring activities, the day-to-day kind of stuff that we do. I think that's what makes us, as a person, very individual. Whereas it's easy on Instagram to look very much the same, especially when it comes to influencers. They're all kind of doing the same stuff, all kind of promoting the same kind of detox teas. Whereas I think if they actually posted what they were doing, like in real life, I think it would be very different. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I think you only see the good parts of people. Like, you can look at a picture of a boyfriend and a girlfriend and they look really happy, but you don't see their arguments behind that photo. You can see someone on holiday with their family, but you can't see that they were actually unwell the whole time. So things that you might actually be really jealous of in real life, it's completely different. So yeah, that's my kind of take on it.
Yeah, so both of you mentioned there that it can vary from person to person, and then you also, Abby, took it one step further, and you mentioned that you kind of like post kind of like what we want people to see on there, like, and it doesn't perhaps have us kind of like on our sad days or bad mental health days. So yeah, it's quite subjective, I guess, about what we post. It's quite opinionated. It's quite biased, depending on what we want them to see. And I must agree there with that. Like, my opinion on this question, I agree with both of you. I think it definitely varies from person to person, and I also think that people on Instagram usually post what they want us to see, and in that way, I suppose it isn't entirely realistic. Although, obviously, it is you, but at the same time, it's only kind of like a certain angle, or perhaps a certain lighting of you, so to speak, because it's just you kind of like at your best, like what you want people to see you as. And yeah, I think that's because we want to perhaps like, I mean, my opinion at least is because we want people to see the best version of us. Like, we want to put the best version of us out there. and like sell ourselves out as kind of like the best versions of ourselves that we can be. And just to go on a little psychology tangent here, I'm a big fan of humanistic psychology, which kind of like proposes that we as individuals constantly seek to find the best in ourselves, and we constantly strive to grow as individuals and to stand out as being like unique. So yeah, I think Instagram profiles are a good example of that, of us trying to like reach our best potential and kind of like show off our best qualities and attributes. So yeah, just moving on to some of our advice here. So the next question, I'm going to move on to Tim. So Tim, we mentioned before that kind of like there's been a few negative kind of like implications that Instagram has caused, such as body image, narcissism, even the customer service to some degree with the negative hashtags and images and whatnot. Would you say there are any solutions, or do you think there should be any solutions which could help kind of like reduce these like negative aspects about Instagram?
Yeah, I think one solution is perhaps the platform encouraging users that, again, they refer to pluralism, freedom of choice. Encouraging, like, you don't have to, follow what your friends are following. Go down your own path and follow who you want to follow. Like Abby has said, and I have said, tailor your feed to how you want it, because that power is quite literally in your hands. It's not, but yeah, they're definitely. But on a more serious note, like with hashtags, like with self-harm, there should be more done. I don't think machine learning right now is enough, and probably Instagram will tell you, yes, we have machine learning which can detect these hashtags and remove them. Well, clearly that's not enough, although that is also partly down to the technology, but they need to put more investment behind that in order to make it better. So the platform is not perfect, and it does have its challenges. So yeah, there should be solutions put in place to ensure that everyone has a good time on the platform, because ultimately everyone deserves to, when they join Insta, that everyone deserves to feel great when they use it. They went to the trouble of downloading it in the first place, so and also that keeps the platform alive as well. If you've got unhappy users, your platform's unfortunately over time just going to die, and no one's going to use it. So if you keep your users happy, they will stick with you, and you'll ultimately have a very successful business. But most importantly, you'll have happiness, and that is the best thing. So that's it really.
Oh, so you mentioned kind of like two main points there about like solutions. So the first one I picked up on was kind of like on a personal level, like perhaps it's like, as both of you mentioned, actually, like tailoring your Instagram to kind of like select content that you want to see. Like, so kind of like going out of your way to kind of like follow pages that are inspiring or positive or healthy. And the second kind of solution that I picked up on was kind of like on a corporate level from Instagram themselves. And they should kind of like implement machine learning more and kind of like invest more in potential solutions for like restricting this damaging content and perhaps working on their customer service.
Yeah. I mean,
so yeah, is there anything else you wanted to add to that, or?
No, that's, not really. No, that's it really.
Okay, so moving on to Abby, would you say there's any solutions to kind of reducing these negative impacts of Instagram on your mental health?
I really do agree with Tim on all aspects of that. I think that, if you're finding that Instagram is impacting your mental health and, making you think it's lowering your self-esteem or your body image, or you find yourself like seeking or being really, really perfectionist about your feed and what you're posting, I think it's good to take a step back and think about what the deeper rooted problem is. And if it is the content that you're seeing, then like Tim said, the power is in your hands to change that. You can be an individual and view what you want to see, things that are going to inspire you or, make you feel good about yourself. That's the content that you need, not every influencer and every celebrity getting caught up in, drama that, in reality is not going to improve your life at all. And yeah, definitely Instagram is on a corporate level, ensuring that things like cyberbullying and all of these really dangerous hashtags and accounts that can be viewed by anyone with really like disturbing content. I think there needs to be more done around that to reduce that, and especially like getting more increasing the customer service when it comes to reporting photos, even if they don't think it's an offense, like with your example, Jack, where, maybe the account wasn't posted really bad cyberbullying type photos, but it's still your photos. And maybe they didn't think that was an issue, but obviously it was to you. And it is an issue. But, this kind of computer type way that they go about checking things isn't good enough, really.
Yeah, so a couple of things that you touched on there. Like, firstly, I realised that you kind of talked about again on like a personal level about us being mindful of what we expose ourselves to and what pages we follow. But again, like Instagram on a corporate level, perhaps even go as far as kind of like altering their policy and morality, and kind of like reviewing on what they actually consider to be an offence and what needs to be acted on. Because like you said, like in my case, like I thought that was quite disturbing and quite it actually was quite harmful, because people were using my photos and DMing other people pretending kind of like to be me, because obviously like using my photos what I look like, people pretending to look like me and talking to kind of like other people pretending to be me. So I thought that was actually quite harmful, and it was disturbing that Instagram didn't consider that to be kind of like an offense or a threat. So yeah, I think Instagram definitely need to perhaps change their policy because of that, and definitely invest more into their customer service. So yeah, some very kind of like interesting solutions there. I'm just going to touch on a final point now. So Tim, is there any top tips that you'd give to friends or family in order to be mindful of their mental health when using Instagram?
Yeah, so I can't say this enough, but again, it comes down to choice. Don't always follow the herd. You know, follow the accounts you want to follow, but also don't get too invested into Instagram. Don't let it take over your life, and don't get addicted to it. One good thing I think Instagram has done, at least fairly recently, is you can now see the time you spent on the app. So do keep an eye on that. Even I check in occasionally, and all as well. So I'm not addicted to it, and I wouldn't want to be. But generally, yeah. My top tips would be, make your feed how you want it, and don't get emotionally too invested into the platform. Don't be too disappointed if a photo you post doesn't get a lot of likes, because photography is very subjective. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way it's always going to be. But yeah, just don't let it take over your life. It is just a photo sharing platform at the end of the day, and nothing more than that.
So some very solid points and tips there, Tim. Thank you very much. So Abby, is there any kind of like top tips that you give to friends and family in order to be mindful of their mental health on Instagram?
Yeah, I completely agree with Tim again. It's don't get addicted to it. Like as easy as it is for me to say, if you find yourself constantly getting hooked on the next video or waiting for someone else's post, if you get too invested in other people's lives as well, that's not going to do your own mental health any good. I think it's good to put down the phone as a whole each and every day and do something for yourself that doesn't involve looking at what other people are doing. I think it's important to do self-care and look after yourself, especially if you're finding that you're getting like more and more kind of addicted and drawn to the app. I think it's good to, put it down and do something different, as as hard as it may be for some people. I think especially with the younger generations, everything is very social media orientated, but staying in touch with yourself is the best thing that you can do for your mental health. Don't stay in touch with every single aspect of every single one of your followers' lives on Instagram. Stay in touch with yourself and your own emotions. That's all I can say simply.
Yeah, so that's some very also some very kind of like insightful tips there from Abby. I'll just kind of like give my take on this, some of my top tips for friends and family. So if I could give top tips in order to be mindful of mental health when using Instagram, I'd say yeah, like definitely, as both of you have said, like be aware of how much time you're spending on the app, because it can actually take up a lot of your day. Like if you're scrolling through everyone's stories, like Abby just said, or like if you're looking at reels, or just scrolling down your whole feeds and unsuggested or like older posts or whatnot. So like to kind of like restrict that, I'd say maybe kind of like make a routine, or like allocate a certain part of your day to looking at Instagram, so maybe like mornings and evenings or whatever. And don't kind of like I'd say definitely like resist the temptation to ruminate on Instagram and to scroll like mindlessly for everything. Yeah, it can be tempting to do that, but I think it can be quite harmful, as both of you have touched on. And another tip I'd say, again, like be mindful of what you expose yourself to. Follow pages that benefit you. Follow pages that make you happy. And post things that make you happy without a fear of kind of like you're not going to be good enough, because if you're posting it in the first place, of course it's good enough, and it's what you like. That's all that should matter, really. That's what I'm going to say on that. So yeah, and that kind of like brings the session to a close. So I'm just going to briefly summarize what we've talked about. So we've mentioned that Instagram can have some kind of like positive implications. Like it can help you keep in touch kind of like with your friends and family and whatnot. It can help you like express how passionate you are about what you enjoy, like with Tim's photography, for instance, and railway posting. And yeah, it can be beneficial for your mental health in that way. It can be inspiring, especially if you follow pages that kind of like are tailored to your lifestyle and your interests. But at the same time, it's important to be mindful, as we've mentioned, because Instagram it can be dangerous in ways that it can promote harmful body image types, especially if you're vulnerable and you have eating disorders, for instance. Like it can be dangerous and it can be addictive in that way. So it's important to be mindful of that. And again, some of the content on Instagram is very easily accessed, but also kind of like very upsetting and distressing. So again, like be mindful of what you're exposing yourself to. So yeah, that pretty much sums up the session. I'm just going to mention our social media for the advisors. So we're on Twitter as CYPIAPT mid YAs, and on Instagram we are Midlands_YA, and our website is www.associatedevelopmentsolutions.com / the Midlands Young Advisors. And yeah, so that's our social media. I'm just going to finish the session on a quote that I actually kind of like had in my dissertation, from like adapted from a journal article, because I wrote a dissertation on Instagram and kind of like its implications on mental health, which is why I've decided to take up this series. But yeah, just to finish on this note, I'm going to read it now. So, whereas the function of Instagram has been noted to being similar to other social media sites, including Facebook, the main focus of Instagram is not centered around building and nurturing social relationships, but rather on enhancing one's self-image. Therefore, it is important to be mindful of how this may influence your mental health. So again, like, even though we may use Instagram to connect with friends, its primary focus is actually for one's self-image and photography. So just be mindful of how this will affect your mental health. And we are finished.